This is basically that rubric that you just saw in Blackboard and how I grade. So you want to read this over pretty thoroughly. I also backed up the rubric in here as well that you can look. This is just how it's done in Blackboard, so you can get an idea of what I'm looking for. Now, in my previous video, I talked about these things that have to be done. The appearance and format, the print ranges, titles and charts, total and subtotals, efficiency, executive summary. So this is what we're going to focus on today: executive summary introduction, financial analysis, and recommendations. These other grading areas are important too, but today I just want to focus specifically on these three. So for the introduction, I'm looking you to give me an overview of your Excel work and the description of how you used Excel to better organize the data and information. Then the financial analysis, your data should be summarized and recommendations developed. Oh, no, this is the one here. Data and financial analysis. I'm looking for a detailed analysis of your financial data. I want an explanation of what you're trying to solve. What did you uncover? Look to draw conclusions, make intelligent connections, and provide data. And then finally, your recommendation. Your data should be summarized and recommendations developed. So this is your critical thinking. I want to know how the company should move forward. What is your advice? So you want to develop a response that's going to be of significant size for these three sections. Okay, so let's look at some examples here. Here is a C grade. So here, if you want a grade of a C, here's a good example. You put your executive summary here at the end. It should always be at the first position. So if your executive summaries, if I have to search for it in the back of your files, that's not good. And the reason is your employer, when you give your executive summary to your boss, they should be able to find it relatively quickly. So the first thing they see. Now here, the smallest section really should be the introduction and Excel summary. And it's sadly the longest section, because here you're just reiterating what the case is you're looking to do in the case, and then some of the Excel work that you did. So this C grade is, they did a fine job in the introduction and Excel summary. Where they fell down is the financial analysis and the recommendation. So all three cases are going to be based on forecasting and looking at sales of a company. So the recommendation here is 2 sentences and no information, no actual data, just all words that anybody could have said, no real insight into the case. And here the financial analysis is the same thing. There's really no numbers to support what they're saying. It's just a very poor representation of a financial analysis. It's just really putting, and again, this one is 3 sentences, just very little detail, no real insight into the case at all. So this would be definitely a C or worse grade. So there's an example. There's no charts, there's no data here. And even though they say something about charts in here, they don't provide any charts or any tables or anything to support their conclusions, because they have no conclusions. So this would be definitely a bad grade. So let's look at a B-level grade. So here's a B-level grade for the executive summary. And, for both the C and B-level grade, they may have done the Excel work okay, but they haven't done the this executive summary too well. So for both of these cases, you see that their Excel work is done well. It's just their executive summary that's poor. So here again, they do give some tables and charts here, but this is a really terrible graphic here. This total group code per year, just not very informative. Most of these things you could barely read or see. And a couple of tables, another poorly designed graph. And these graphs are the most basic graphs you can do. A blue line on a white background. It's just the automatically selected graph here. So, but at least they have graphs, or the B-level grade didn't even have graphs. But they have graphs and charts here, which is fine. Problem is they don't really reference them in the financial analysis or in the recommendation. So if you're going to put these graphs or charts in here, you should reference them somewhat while you're talking about what you're doing here. So they took the time to actually label the graphs and charts, which is good. This is table 1, chart 1, table 2, chart 2, table 3, chart table 4, chart 4, table 5. So this is good that they outlined them like that, but they never went back when they were doing the financial analysis or the recommendation to really link up the graphics to what the information is they're giving in the case. So here, if we look at the introduction and Excel summary, the introduction is just one sentence, which is very poor, should be at least a paragraph. And then the Excel summary is okay. They just kind of listed out some formulas here. But these are just formulas. They didn't list out really everything they did in Excel, which you don't have to do everything, but they just kind of, I guess this would be sufficient. It's not really that critical, but they should include the more, not just formulas to financial ratios, but more of the Excel formulas and functions they used. Okay, so in the financial analysis, they did give 2 short paragraphs, which isn't too bad. They actually give a couple of numbers, but they're just talking about what they did. They didn't really summarize the results. Down here, they talk a little bit about some margins increasing or decreasing, really don't provide any concrete financial analysis supported by all these graphs and charts they put together. So it's really, but it's somewhat of an effort. At least it's not 3 sentences. And then in the recommendation, again, this is too short of a recommendation. Should have been a little bit longer, should include more specific numbers and connection to the graphs and tables, and just look like they just wrote something quickly with no real deep insight into what the case is about. So again, not making the connections or drawing the conclusions that they should, but still it's a B grade because they did at least write a paragraph for the recommendation, 2 paragraphs for the financial analysis, and try to put together a series of charts. So mostly it's a B grade for their actual Excel work is very good and detailed and well formatted. So they did the Excel portion of it pretty well. It was just the executive summary that was weak and moved their grade from an A to a B because they didn't really execute well on the executive summary. So now let's look at an A-level executive summary. So here is an A-level executive summary. And you see here that we have the introduction, which is, again, the introduction is a small part of your grade. And actually here, even though they didn't do a very great, they did a decent Excel summary, but they didn't do that good of an introduction to the case, which is fine. No points for taking off for it. A note was probably put in the recommendations or the comments of the grading that they should elaborate a little bit more. But again, the introduction, you're just regurgitating what I put in the memo. So it's not really that critical. But if you see the financial analysis, they took the time to detail the 3 size stores, small, medium, and large, in great detail with a lot of supporting numbers and evidence from the case. So very detailed financial analysis. And the financial analysis is so detailed on the numbers and on the year, on the information, comparing the information between the small store, the medium store, and the large store, and really documenting what was discovered in the spreadsheet was done so well that even if the introduction is missing, it's still they've done so well in the financial analysis, that's easily overlooked and points won't be taken off on the grading for that because the financial recommendation is financial analysis is so well developed from the details in the case. And the same thing with the recommendations. So the recommendations, again, is going to give some advice on what the company should do to move forward, supporting it with the actual numbers of the case, saying that they should go with the large store because it has the biggest net present value associated with it, and talking about the internal rate of return and making the comparison and looking at, internal rate of return and internal rate, net present value. We're referencing the table, columns in table 1. So really just doing a really elaborate and detailed deep dive into a recommendation of the case, and then supporting it with, they put 2 tables together, nothing fancy, but just, good enough. Everything's in proper format. And then they put some good charts together, not just the first chart that pops up when you select a chart in the case, but actually detailed charts where they edited the chart to look more pleasant with a shadow background and different colors. And they have, a couple different styles of chart, and a couple, you see they're changing the background and the numbers here, giving you a little bit better comparison of monthly store sales between small, medium, and large for the year. So just a good use of graphics and charts that they built into their recommendations and financial analysis. And you see how they wrote a significant amount. So the first clue to me, if I look at your executive summary and you wrote 2 or 3 sentences, I'm going to only have 2 or 3 sentences to grade you by. I'm going to look at them very carefully. So having a very abbreviated financial analysis recommendation is going to be a poor result for your grade. You want to have a much more detailed, you want to prove to me that you know the data in the case, that you really looked through the case, that you came up with some distinctive, tangible financial analysis conclusions, just stating, exactly. Financial analysis really should be a summary or a shortcut for me as your boss to understand. So I don't want to have to look through all the data on all these different pages. I want to go right to just look at the executive summary of your boss and get a quick overview of exactly what is the data you're analyzing and what was the financial results of your financial analysis. It's just straight up comparing numbers and telling me the facts that you're able to derive from the data and making the conclusions from the data. And then the recommendation is, putting those conclusions together and saying, we should sell this company, or we should buy and merge with that company, or we should, issue whatever the topics of the case is looking to look at. You're going to give direction of your suggestions of how the company should move forward. Should they buy a medium-sized store or a large-sized store? What is the advantages and disadvantages of each decision or each recommendation you want? So another really well thought out, well designed, incorporating everything you learned in business, incorporating all of your business acumen that you learned in accounting and finance and marketing and all the other courses you've taken to end your life experiences in business, to kind of put that together, give a recommendation of where this company should move forward in a detailed and generous manner, supported by charts. And the key thing is, if I don't see you referencing charts and graphs in your financial analysis or recommendation, or pulling numbers directly from the result of your calculations, I'm not going to be too impressed with your work. Okay, so this would be an A-level grade for your executive summary. And that, again, I just wanted to go over quickly what I'm looking for when you compose these executive summaries. Because I find, if you think about it, I'm giving you pretty much a step-by-step tutorial on how to complete each of these spreadsheets on YouTube. So I really don't expect you're going to have too many major issues in your data or your formatting, because I'm going over it pretty closely step by step. So the only thing where I'm really looking to grade you a little bit more closely is the executive summary, which is all your original effort. It's not copying me. It's not watching my YouTube and just doing what I do on YouTube. It's not getting this, it's not just organizing the data here. It's actually thinking, making constructive, critical thinking, and assembling together a financial analysis and a recommendation for me as a business owner or CFO I can utilize to move the company forward. So you need to demonstrate to me not only that you have the Excel skills to put a case together, which is, I think, the easier part, since it's specifically walking you through each case. I have to look more closely towards your executive summary. And I want to see that you're putting together what you've learned also in your other financial electives, if you've taken other financial electives, and just what is your overall understanding of how you would look at a company's results. So each financial analysis and recommendation, of course, are different for each student, because it's really how you're interpreting the data and you putting together just some basic business information that any student in this course should already have from, most of the students in this course would be juniors and seniors and have taken most of their coursework. And this is probably one of your last 2 semesters you're taking this class in. So you should be pretty well formed and have plenty of examples to derive from how to do a financial analysis. And it's just common sense, looking at, okay, did sales go up? Did sales go down? Why? Depending, each case is different. So I can't really give you a concrete set of rules on how to create a financial analysis, except that you have to look at the data given. You have to use Excel to organize the data to put it in a format you can easily transition. Now, some people will create a separate page for tables where they'll kind of construct and place a number of tables, graphs, and charts on the second page called tables. But I want you to pull from here. Now, you don't have to even make a tab called tables. Some students do that. But on the executive summary, you're not going to give me every table and chart you created, but you're just going to give me the ones that are going to be critical to understanding the case material and supporting your information in the recommendation of student analysis. Now, sometimes, there might be, I see kind of a mistake here that there's no need on this particular chart to have so many positions beyond the decimal point. That is something that's not necessarily, I would say, something that you would need to have that many positions after the decimal point. So something I might bring up in the grading, in the comment section, but not necessarily take points off of. You don't have to be absolutely perfect, but when I keep seeing the same mistakes over and over again, and just some basic laziness, not setting up print ranges, not setting up, freezing the top row, not creating subtotals. These are things that points will be taking off. But specifically in the financial analysis, I want to see that you did some thinking, some critical thinking, that you spent some time and you really tried to put together something in the financial analysis and recommendation that would actually be helpful to a leader in the company or a business owner, that's going to really show that you can take the data, interpret it, and then make sort of an abbreviated analysis of what the data is detailing and what the company can do. You can use this data to move forward and become more profitable. And if you can do that in this particular, detailed length, you'll do very well in the course. Okay. So I just wanted to create this short 20-minute video to review how you should prepare for and think about before you create your first executive summary, because you really want to spend some time in this area. And a majority of the points are in this executive summary. So if you want to do well in the case, you need to do well in the executive summary tab. And I've had numerous students in the past complete the casework and not even attempt to do the executive summary. And then when they get a very poor score, when they get a 20% or 30% grade, when they get a 30% in the assignment, they want to know why. It's mostly because they lost all the points because they didn't submit an executive summary. Or they submitted a very rushed executive summary, or an executive summary that's not well developed, or missing the key points of the case. So if there's some really glaring key points of the case that everybody should be able to recognize, and probably 80 to 90% of the students do recognize, and you don't recognize it, that's another glaring detail that I would point out in your grading and in the comments to your grading, that you obviously really weren't paying attention to what the details were in the case. Okay, so with that being said, I hope this was helpful in you understanding how to craft and what I'm looking for in the executive summary.